Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mark Groves podcast. So, I've been really interested in why we get stuck in change and transformation, and also our journey as coaches, therapists, healers, interventionalists of any kind, and how it demands that we do personal work. Like, look, you don't have to, but if you want your work to be embodied, and there's that saying that you can only meet someone as deeply as you've met yourself. And so, when you're navigating a challenge with someone who has come to you to be supported with that, we have to have explored or know tools that have walked us through something like that on some level, and that we're not willing to go into our shadow, that we recognize where our codependencies are, where our hooks are. And so to me, that work really has a deep level of integrity that is really necessary to make sure the work is done with ethical, from an ethical lens. And I think there's a responsibility that we have in walking alongside each other, that we're willing to continue to grow, that we're willing to eat giant pieces of humble fucking pie. Because let's be honest, you need a deep level of curiosity, but you also need a deep level of humility to constantly be growing. And we need to increase our capacity for shame. And, not all shame is toxic. There is shame that is healthy, that comes from the violation of our own morality, that we've actually hurt and harmed ourselves by making decisions and choices that are saying to ourselves that we don't value ourselves, that we don't respect ourselves. And we all know that feeling. That's putting our bodies in places they shouldn't be. That's having drinks when we know we don't want to anymore. That's doing drugs when we know we shouldn't anymore. That's numbing and continuing to engage in any type of behavior that is not bringing us more alive. And I'm really excited about today's guest because she is the therapist for therapists and the coach for coaches. I love that, and you think of people like Kobe had a coach, LeBron has a coach, Michael Jordan had a coach, Jokovic had a coach. All these people who are the top and best in the world have people to continue to make them better. And I think for all of us, we need to always have external eyes that are able to see the things we can't see. That's, they're able to shine a spotlight on the things that we can't see because we're in it. As that saying goes, you can't see the forest when you're in the trees. So I say all that because today's guest is an incredible teacher in that space, and uh, a former psychotherapist, marriage and family, and a psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist, coach, somatic worker, just incredible, and has combined all these modalities to help talk to us about why do we get stuck in certain places and what is the way through? How do we see our experiences more holistically? She dropped some serious mic drops in this episode. And also, I'm really fascinated in her perception and ideas. She dropped some serious truth bombs about, like, my questions about scarcity within the coaching world, and do we have to use social media to actually have a successful business, etc. So deep questions that I have had, and excited for you to dive in this episode. So without further ado, let's go. Today I have the coach's coach, the therapist's therapist, which I always think of that quote from Brene Brown in The Power of Vulnerability, where she's like, I need like someone who sees through people like me. So I'm so excited to have you, to have like the therapist and coach whisper. Let's call you that. I know that
Mm.
that feels like a good hit. So you're a licensed psychotherapist, an MFT, trained in somatics, and you really merged these things. This is why I love your work, because you've taken the merger of the mind with the body and really found what it means to create sustainable change, and where the limitations were in those previous places individually. Is
Yeah.
that a fair
Yeah,
representation?
absolutely. When I was getting licensed as a psychotherapist, I'm like, this is not just about the mind. We need more of a holistic approach to transformation. And for me, a real healing is a change of behavior. And so I took some of the best of psychotherapy and transformational inner work and applied it to strategic goals and outer work so that it's not just changing your life from the inside, but also on the outside. It's sustainable. So I like energy and strategy. I like the intersection of those two.
What made you actually discover the sort of missing piece of somatics? Because most therapists don't start with that or even
No.
go into that right away.
Yeah, I came in pretty clear. Like when I was 12, I knew I wanted to be a healer, live in the redwoods, but I also want to live in New York City and I wanted to do marketing. So like Phoebe and Monica from Friends, I've got these like I was going to write a book, Stillness and Stilettos, there's like two parts of me that are very core throughout my life. And I find myself living in Los Angeles in a very like modern world, but living a deeper truth. And so when I even was an undergrad, I made up my own major, interdisciplinary studies, where I did psychology, religious studies, and sociology, because it's got to be holistic. And so I went and got my first master's degree in spiritual psychology and loved that work. And I remember there was a pivotal moment for me where I was opening the refrigerator, telling myself that I was rocking it. I was doing so good in my life. And I was opening the refrigerator to emotionally overeat. And I had a moment where I just woke up and I was like, oh, I'm bypassing. There's a whole other conversation happening in my body that I'm unaware of. And really, the body is the unconscious. And so I just felt like I was missing a big part of the work by not studying somatic work. And I tried to do it in undergrad, but then I was working with cadavers and it wasn't quite somatics. And so in
You're like, I'm
2010,
disintegrating their nervous system and picking it apart.
And that was fascinating. I actually, it was fascinating to look at the human body, but that wasn't quite it. And so doing somatic, started getting licensed my second master's degree in somatic psychotherapy in 2010 so that I could learn more about integrating that work. And since then, I've created my own methodology that incorporates somatic work, emotional mastery, mindset work, subconscious reprogramming, and strategic change. Because to me, that's more holistic. Some people need fire, they need it fierce and direct. Other people need water, they need to be more compassionate, more inviting of themselves. And they're different stages of our lives. But as we have those well-developed tools, we can navigate our life with more ease, no matter what challenge is coming up in our life. But as we're good on the inside, life is a reflection. And so it's easier to create those changes on the outside. So that's part of my journey in a short stint, to just talk about where I've come from and the power of the work that I feel like I'm doing now within myself and with students as well, training and certifying coaches.
What do you think is the way that people most start coming to this work?
Through pain. I think there's an intelligence through suffering. I think most people aren't very proactive, and pain can be a real motivator for people to say, okay, I've tried that, it doesn't work. And most of society, when I was becoming a therapist, I was like, why don't we have these tools in grade school? Why am I learning it in grad school? And so just for me, starting this work or doing my podcast was like, let me empower people with the tools, no dependency, and anything even that I'll share here on the podcast, because I like practical, I like spiritual and practical. And so anything I share, I just invite people not to believe me, but to test it out. So, right, you can try something and see if it works. And if it does work for you, just keep implementing it. But it's gotta be holistic and it's gotta be true for you.
I resonate with everything you're saying, because so much the initial part of my journey was the pain. And then the space between the like opening the fridge and taking the food versus the space between taking the food and really exploring, why am I grabbing the sugar or the whatever? It usually takes some sort of like, let's say some sort of type 2 diabetes, or like in that context, a sugar crash, a body thing, an autoimmune, where all of a sudden we're like, oh, what is actual healing? And I love what you're saying, because all of it is a doorway into really reconnecting with yourself, aligning to your truest self. And that journey where I started, of the pain of relationship and feeling lost and not know who I was, and then really diving deep into more of the positive psychology space. But then eventually I got to the space of somatics. And I think the mind stuff was, of course, you understand the conceptual nature of healing. You understand the conceptual nature of a goal. You understand, I want to change this behavior. I want to stop dating these people. I want to be a better communicator and not get defensive or shut down or run from people or attack. And then we get stuck there, because the wanting, and you can see this other life and what's possible for your life when you're like craving access to your words and craving access to choice. And you're like, but it's on my goal list. Like, why won't I let myself actually just, it's so obvious what needs to transform. And I feel so many of us, and for me, that was true. I got like stuck in these upper limits. So what's going on there?
And I love that question, especially because we're in the new year. And so it's like, why don't New Year's resolutions work? Like, how do we actually create sustainable change? Because we all know pushing harder, more willpower just leads to burnout. So let's try a different way. That's great information. But before we get to that, I love what you're saying around, so if most of us get into this work because of pain, and it's important to do the shadow work, but it's also important, especially for therapists, healers, people that are really committed to their personal development work, not to get stuck there. So to do the work around celebration, around optimizing what does work. So there are times where we go into portals to do some of our deep shadow work, but we also want to balance it. There's also certain personalities that they hang out in being happy because that's a coping strategy. So honoring both and honoring what's true, but having the tools to more easily navigate it. And so just on the somatic front, what I love about that work is that you don't need to know the story to integrate it into your nervous system. And it also doesn't need to take a long time. Like it only takes 90 seconds. And research might even be saying sooner if you feel a sensation in your body as a sensation, not a story. So pure energy in the body, you presence it, and it starts to move through, it starts to integrate. So, and we can dive deeper into that portal because I think somatic work is so powerful. And rather than just looking at or listening to what somebody is saying and being hyper vigilant on the content, looking at the context, looking at what their body or what your body is doing. Like I had that refrigerator door moment where I woke up out of the story I was telling myself. So really looking at what is my body saying, because it is the unconscious. And if I bring more presence, because with personal development work, if we want to go faster, we slow down. We bring presence. We really listen to what the body wants. And so we don't have to, it's not top down, it's bottom up. So really, like for example, I might have a client working with me and they may be rubbing the back of their neck and saying one thing, but it feels it's not coming into alignment. Like there's a dissonance between what they're saying and what they're sharing me with their body. So I might have them slow down in mindfulness and repeat that gesture because I'm tuned into my body. And then they'll have more insights for themselves because everybody has their own wisdom. And so we just have to ask powerful questions to either elicit our own or support our clients in accessing their wisdom. So slowing it down, bringing curiosity and presence helps illuminate it. And then to presence and allow it starts to integrate it. And then we're no longer caught by it. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And it brings this, so where they would just normally be soothing themselves with their hand, they're not even knowing they're doing that as they're sharing, because it's just this somatic way that they've been nurturing and trying to calm and regulate, not knowing that they're even dysregulated in the sharing of whatever the context is.
Yeah. Or it could be on the other side where they're like karate chopping their hand, being like, it's going to be so easy. And they're telling you this and their hands are saying something totally different and they don't realize the disconnect. And I can't tell you how many people are like, you're an incredible coach because I'm witnessing that. And there are certain things that all of us can do that give us a window peek into having deep ways of working with people. And so the more we are looking at and working with somatic work, the easier, and it's almost like we have one hand behind our back without knowing somatic work. When we know that, we have more of our full potential. And it's a buzzword right now and it's powerful, but it's also not the only way. Somatic is important. Mindset work is important because if we're questioning the limitations, then we don't have to keep repeating doing only somatic work, because the somatic work is the densest work. Again, it's the unconscious. So if there's a pressure in my heart, and this is also why I love coaching, Mark. I get so excited because if for me, it's like, if you really, when you say you want to have a goal and you start stepping towards it, all that unconscious material comes up so it can be presenced and worked through. Not only then do you get more freedom around that goal now, but then you don't have to project all of those blocks and triggers to other people in the future. So you proactively, and anybody listening to this podcast is proactively doing the work, which is amazing. Life gets a lot easier that way rather than postponing it by repressing it. And so as somebody is moving towards a goal, those things come up. And if they know that that's normal, and if they have the tools to move through it, it just gets a lot easier. And so just giving people the orientation around that, I think, is really helpful. And knowing that there's lots of different tools that they could utilize. but just kind of circling back to, we can go down somatic work, but just circling back to like New Year's resolutions. So one of the 5 levels that I teach change is on the subconscious. And so a lot of people are like, okay, it's the new year. I want to grow my business, but then they're afraid of being seen. Or they say they want love, but then they're afraid of being hurt. So there's this push pull happening inside where they've got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brakes. And the subconscious is responsible for 95% of behavior change. So, and the subconscious is the body, it's hidden to us oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if 5% is saying, here are all my New Year's resolutions, and yet I've got this competing desire and I'm at war inside myself, no wonder we think we need to push harder, we need to have more willpower, and then we burn out. It makes sense. And to have compassion with ourselves is really important. And so what you can do is you can slow down. If there's been a goal that you've been trying to achieve, you can slow down to ask yourself, what do I fear would happen if I got the goal? And most of the time people, they are like, I don't have any fears of that goal. And it's like, okay, but if it's here, there's a payoff. There's some way that you're unconsciously gaining from that.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of ground this, I had a woman who came to see me, and I love 2 areas I like working with is money and business, because that was a big trigger for me, right? Suffering leads to us doing the work. And I really have a deeper level of freedom around it. And that's a big part of what I find my clients struggle with. And love, relationships, those are both. And at the core of it, it's the same, especially when you're working with core wounds and how does that show up in reality. So there's this woman that came to see me, and she's like, I've worked with a lot of coaches and I keep hitting this upper limit, this plateau. She was doing really well in business. She was making 250,000, but she was hiring more people. She was spending more on ads, and she just kept hitting up against this limit. And this can be for weight. This can be for love, happiness, money. And I asked her, what do you fear would happen? She started laughing. She's like, I have no fear of making more money, Alyssa. And I said, okay, humor me, slow down, just get curious, just suspend your judgment and really listen more deeply, not the conscious mind, right? Again, that's 5%. So I was like, if I make more than 250,000, I fear. And I had her really just tune in. And then she just started crying, like tears started streaming down her face. And she realized when her mom got a promotion, her parents got a divorce. And so she unconsciously tied making more money with not having a strong marriage. And I didn't give that to her. I couldn't have known that for her.
Right.
But by asking the question, she could hear, and just suspend the conscious mind, she could hear and see images of what the competing desire was inside. And then I was able to support her in identifying how much she wanted to make and what does a strong marriage look like, and how do we prioritize both and clear the subconscious misunderstanding about her parents' marriage needing to be hers. So this stuff runs deeper. And to me, it's actually exciting, because instead of trying to be at war inside of ourselves, it's bringing more awareness to it and then getting out of our own way. It can be a lot easier by doing that work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially when... Oh. Emergency alert.
Yeah. Okay.
You good?
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when we haven't considered this story from our childhood, this thing like our mom getting a promotion and then our parents getting divorced. That's not the natural place we'd go to if we were filling out or doing like CBT, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that CBT doesn't have a role sometimes, but I think, like you said, like no one tool is everything. And
that's right.
I remember watching, I went to a talk from Tony Robbins at a psych conference. And in it, he said, of course, this is so Tony Robbins, but he was like, a lot of you are using tools that are 50 years old. And there's no such thing as a stuck client, only a stuck interventionalist. And essentially saying that like humans don't actually have that many complexities to how their traumas and their dysfunction show up. Like there's only so many ways it can present.
Yep.
And I was just sitting in the audience like, yes, I think because, and I love the therapeutic world, and I've been treated in that space, and I've worked in that space with people alongside brilliant therapists. And I always thought like in my own journey, that's the mind is where I started. But like when I met somatics, when I actually did somatic sessions, things came forward that I never found. And when I started to do sessions with a psychotherapist who combined the things, and then did a training with him, because the training, of course, is like a deep diver into your own soul.
That's right.
I was just like, oh my God, the body needs to be brought into this. And oh, that anxiety I have, there's actually brilliance to it. And
That's
so
right.
everything you're saying, like I never even thought before I did work with a money person that my money stuff was like, that I would actually sabotage making more, that I would actually, or play out my wounds with my mom with Instagram. Like these are things that never, who
It
thinks
runs
that?
deep. I
Yeah.
know. And it runs deep in every area of our life. Running a team. Like I have a pretty big team right now, and I'm looking at, the family dynamics that I had around being the glue, making sure everyone was okay, started playing out with my team. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it's just everything. I literally thought, okay, but maybe hiring people is different. There's no part of our life that is separate from this. This is some of our original programming. And it's exciting to me
Right.
because then those tools, having a map, like Tony's accurate, having a map to see, okay, there's the leaf
The
that's
thing.
connected to a
Yeah.
branch, and here's the core thing. It's either
Mm.
I don't feel like I'm good enough, I am afraid of being abandoned. There's some core same wounds that always go back to safety. And if we can learn to be with ourselves and create safety for ourselves, we feel more authentic and more expressed in the world. That feels true. But just to give you a glimpse into my map and method around it, in case this is helpful for people, I'm a fan of, so mental work. You could do CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy is great. I just like questioning my thinking. Byron
Mhm.
Katie's work is great on that level. There's
Yeah,
different
she's
tools,
awesome.
but mindset work is phenomenal. And when you question the thinking, then you don't have to keep recreating this sensation. But usually we feel some, maybe if I start crying, I'm going to, or if I'm working with myself, or let's just say if you come to me crying, I'm going to meet you emotionally first. I'm going to help you create safety for the part of you that feels scared. And then I'm going to help you work through it somatically by bringing presence and breathing into that contraction, that tight energy in your body, and so that you start to move it through. And then I'm going to have you question the story, because thoughts, feelings, and sensations, you can't really say that they're separate, but you can work at it a little bit more specifically. You've got to do the work mentally, because, and subconscious reprogramming used to really be really popular, and now somatic is like the buzzword, but they're still all really important. And some
Mhm.
people are really heady. They live in their head as an unconscious way to avoid feeling. And that's going to give them feedback with a lot of anxiety. And they're there for the anxiety as a friend, telling them that, oh, this isn't working. Actually, it's safe to feel my feelings if I learn how to do it. The work with emotional mastery is to allow, not indulge and not avoid, just to allow the energy to move through. And that's the same for somatic work. Even thoughts. I mean, part of the work is just to come into acceptance with what is. That doesn't mean you're being complacent, but get into alignment, because if you judge or resist it, you're stuck with it. It's like the two hardest things if you want to be stuck with something, you identify with like critic, or like I should be further along. You identify with a pattern, or you judge it, is
Mm.
actually what you do to get stuck with it. So the opposite is true. If you want to break free, you look at that being an energy inside of you, or a part of you, or an emotion. It's not who you are. It's coming and going, but you don't come and go. And then if you don't judge it, it also creates space, because every part of us is looking to be seen and heard. And so when you see compassionately how it was trying to serve you, maybe ineffectively, like the critic, I think, for example, has a bad rap. So it's like, oh, what do I fear would happen if I let go of the critic? Highlights how the critic is trying to help us. It's like, oh, I fear that I won't do better. And
Mm.
it's like, oh, thank you for trying to make sure that I do better. Is the way that I'm approaching this working? No. Okay, so that's ineffective, but I don't need to judge it to move on from it. So I can bring compassion to the critic. Otherwise, I'm just another layer of criticism,
Right.
criticizing the critic.
You're just rejecting it anyways.
Exactly.
Again.
Yeah. And actually, as the critic feels like, oh, you're the part of me that wants to make sure that I'm moving forward, that I'm safe, because it always comes back to safety. I belong, so that then I feel safe. Thank you. It settles. And most people
Mm.
think I need to judge it, or if I identify with it, but it's the game of opposites, which is actually true.
It's such a different way to orient to it. I know in parts work, when you do what you're saying and you ask, like, what is the positive intent of your criticism, of your being hard on me, on us? And every one of those parts of us has a positive intent.
They're trying their best.
Like, I
Yeah.
just want you to get better so dad will finally notice you, or I want you to be perfect because when you're not, you've faced a lot of criticism from mom, or I want you to learn to let go of this voice because it's painful. So the louder I get, the more. And it's like so fascinating when you allow the person to decide what that part really is saying. Because I think as interventionalists, we often make assumptions. Like, I remember in that training I did on psychotherapy meets somatics, it was fascinating because this woman had had a dream where a bear was attacking her in the dream. Sorry, the bear came to a glass and was like trying to put its paws over top. And he did a parts work like a gestalt with her.
Yeah.
And when he asked her, like, if the bear could speak, what would it say? And it was like, I'm trying to help you. Well, of course, most people sitting around were like, oh, a bear attacking? Like, is that her dad? Is that, whatever,
From
right?
the mind.
Is it patriarchy? Is it whatever? Has she experienced trauma? And meanwhile, the bear is like, I'm trying to get to you.
Yeah.
To actually, and there's a wall, a glass wall that I can see you, but I can't get to it. And when he did that exploration with her, I just remember being like, wow, it's so powerful when you use the tool to let the brilliance be brought forward that reveals the healing.
Yeah. And somatic work is more advanced because newer facilitators want to know the steps. And somatic work, you have to let the intelligence of life unfold. You need more stillness and silence to let that wisdom emerge. And I love that story because I think dream work can be really powerful where you give voice. And I love Gestalt work, which a lot of people don't talk about parts work really coming from Gestalt work. And I studied in Gestalt originally, but there's subtle differences. But anyway, like you might give voice to the bear and have a totally different insight. I had this with a spider and I was like, oh, the spider. And I got to see it, not from the mind, because it's the subconscious again. So even the glass, you would speak from the glass and you would say, I'm trying to protect you. I'm seeing through you, but I want to help you. And so each of those aspects, but these parts of us and even other people defend to the degree they don't feel accepted. And so when you can see them through that compassionate eye, that they start to settle, they start to relax, and therefore you have dominion over them.
That's really fascinating. They defend to the level that they're not accepted. So the more resistance that we have to a behavior or a way of being, the more judgment we have to that part. That makes
the more that part is, and the more it's both true for parts within us, energy, you could say sensation, emotions, parts, however you want to define it. It's true for that internally, but also externally. So the more I judge my husband, the more he's going to, if he's unconscious, the more he's going to defend. So what's beautiful about this work is the same principles apply to ourselves as they do to relationships. And actually, as we try to avoid feeling something with a behavior, we create it. The very things we're trying to avoid, we actually create. And so yeah, it sucks, but it's also kind of exciting because if we got the feedback, it doesn't work, then it's like, let's try something totally different. And the most powerful advanced somatic tool that I can share with you and your audience is what I call the paradox of transformation. And so what happens is you'll notice the first step is just to identify what is the feeling I'm trying to avoid, because most people try to manipulate their partner, their business, their kids, something outside of themselves so they don't feel something. But if you identify what is it I'm trying to avoid feeling? Okay, I'm trying to avoid feeling failure or rejection. Once you identify it, then you can see what are all the ways that I've been trying to avoid it. Okay, I do X, Y, and Z, just a little journal prompt. And wow, now I can see I'm actually creating it by trying to avoid it. And then you feel into where is it in your body? And you want to feel a level of safety before doing deeper somatic work, especially if there's been big T trauma, meaning it's outside the window of tolerance, really help people feel safe. But if you have a level of safety, you feel in your body, where is that feeling of rejection? Or where is that feeling of failure? And bring your awareness into that sensation in your body as presence. And so you don't get caught in the storyline in the mind, because that actually locks the energy in. You just feel it as pure sensation, breathe into it as a sensation, not a story. And if you do that for 90 seconds, it will move through. And if you have done it for 90 seconds, it means, and it's still here, it means you're in your mind recreating the feeling.
So you're thinking the feeling.
That's right. You're avoiding it you're distracting by analyzing it. And a lot of people are like, I'm courageous, and they start
Yeah.
to feel it. And the core stuff is in the gut. It's the dantian,
Yeah.
2 inches below the belly button. They start to go down there to feel it. And then they get all scared, or, some resistance comes up, and then they go back up into their mind. But they've actually just made it so much harder, because if they just kept breathing in through, it would have moved through the body, but they just recycled it, and they have to go down through the elevator all the way again to feel it. But again, it doesn't have to be hard. It just takes the right environment and the frameworks to know how to navigate our inner world more easily.
When you train people in this, where do you start? Like, where is the sort of doorway?
Great question. I start with awareness, and then I start with mindset work, because it's safer, because you want to build the relationship with people. I made the mistake earlier on in my career. I'd have a guy come to see me and be like, my wife says I'm emotionally unavailable. And I'm like, you found the right person. And I would go there. And then I didn't hear back from them because I went too fast, too deep. And so I always share with my clients, it's like, I'll share with you all the things that I did wrong so you can avoid it. But I start with mindset work and awareness so that they can build that relationship, the safety, the trust, before going to the deeper work, which is more, I would say first it's mindset, and then somatic, because I think somatic is a back door for a lot of people, because if they're caught in their head, that's an easy back door. But I think emotional work is usually some of the most protected, and you really want to have the relationship feel safe to be able to go there.
That makes sense. And I think as you journey through, like when you think of someone coming to you with pain and suffering, they've identified that they have a feeling that they want to change, or a pattern that they want to change. So they're then filling out, let's say, an application, or they're signing up for something or whatever. So they're still actively communicating through the mind what is going on and what they'd like to change. And so they're met in that, so that they can then descend, which it makes sense for an avoidant person that you would want to start here, so that they can feel safe to actually be in their body and trust to co-regulate.
Yes.
Trust to actually allow you to energetically work with them. That's fascinating. I like that.
And I'll meet them wherever they are, because if they show up, usually people don't show up crying, but if they go there, I'm going to meet them in that, so they don't feel invalidated. But if I notice that they're wallowing, that they're actually staying in the tears for a while, that might be a safety strategy that I call out with love. And then I teach them more mindset work, so that they identify what is the story that's creating this feeling. Because otherwise they're going to feel a victim to their mind, telling themselves how bad they are, when then they only are ruminating on like spin cycle, feeling the thing over and over again. So I'm always tracking, because of the depth of work that I've done, I'm tracking where they are and what I think will serve as an intervention. And I think that's helpful for us to have as friends, as facilitators, as community, to be able to see what are our own blind spots, so that once we can become aware of it and no longer unconsciously get sucked into those dynamics.
So once you go, like in your training, you go mindset, somatics, then what?
Yeah. So I'll go first awareness, like awareness of what their goals are and what they want. I'll go into self-awareness. We'll go into awareness of those, like Tony Robbins you were talking about. I didn't know he had that, but I have a map. So what are the leaves? What are the branches? What's your core story? I'll do some psychological and spiritual awareness work, and to talk about wholeness, that there's nothing wrong with us. This is not giving us tools to fix us. This is giving us tools to part the clouds to the misunderstandings of the patterns that we used as safety strategies, but we get to elevate beyond, because now we have a program like this, or a facilitator, or somebody to help teach us another way to try that on. So first awareness, then we'll go mindset. And then I might go into some somatic work, depending. This isn't prescriptive, but because you want to tailor it to each person. But this would be a good trajectory then to build into the emotional work, because thoughts, feelings, sensations, those go together. So I'll do that. And then I'll do some deeper subconscious reprogramming, like what we were saying, like I want to fall in love, but I'm scared of being hurt. And so we'll talk about upper limits. We'll do some subconscious work, and then strategic. They're taking action throughout. And as they're taking action, any of those things that have held them back come up, so that we can actually empower them with tools so that they can clear it, not just now, but then they have the tools for the rest of their career or the rest of their lives to navigate their inner world more with more authority and power. Being a parent, being an entrepreneur, being, whatever their goal is.
Well, of course, as you're doing that curriculum, you're doing that curriculum.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
you are.
oh,
Yeah, you are.
oh shit, I thought I'd sign up to do this for other people. Damn it. I got to do it myself.
That's right. And that to me is the best gift.
Yeah,
like for me,
I
this
agree.
as a coach, therapist, healer, facilitator, like that, to me, this is the best profession in the world because I get to live my best life. And from here, I get to serve others in doing that for themselves. Otherwise, we want to help others as an unconscious way to help ourselves, but we're not living it. And that's not sustainable. And so I always have my students embody the work and they're like, wow. And then they attract clients to them. They attract opportunities. It doesn't even matter if they don't because they're just awake to who they are. They're feeling vibrant and they attract partnership from there. I always say like, you are the one. And so as you be that for yourself, you can't help but attract somebody that matches you and you don't put up with anything less than you're offering yourself.
It's a hot
And
swagger too. It's like,
yeah.
when someone's like that, you're like, damn.
Hey, yeah. You attract beyond the wound.
Yes, I love that. It's almost like, your Tinder and your Bumble just hit differently. You might not even need them anymore. You might not want them.
Yeah.
This is, I think, a big question in the space of coaching, therapy. And I think for a lot of you listening or watching, it's probably resonant if you're a coach or a therapist or you desire to be, which is that for me, when I first started in this space, I was really, I was like, oh, there's so many coaches. Like it feels like the realtor space. No offense if you're a realtor.
Yeah,
it was just like the way I was thinking about it.
I got it.
And so when we're operating from that mindset, because I'm sure a lot of people are, it's like, there's a zillion coaches on Instagram, for example. Mm-hmm. What do you say back to that? I'm really curious. I hate to set you up. I'm like,
no. I honestly, when you're good at what you do and you know that and you embody it, you don't worry about competition. Yeah. You're here to serve. And when you look around, instead of what can I get, thinking about what can I give, there are a lot of people in the world that need support. So, coaches come from a different world than psychotherapy. People need therapists. They don't need coaches. Coaches is going from good to great. People that are not highly functioning need a therapist, right? Addiction, we talk about trauma. There's just it's a different realm. There's some overlap in some of it. But when I look from the lens of service, I see a lot of people that could be served in this world. And I think the best way we can give back to humanity is to do the work ourselves first. We don't need to be perfect, but we do get to use our life experiences, maybe our divorce, our health challenge, our addiction, to support our own healing and integration so that then we can support others through theirs. And so we just want to be a few steps ahead of our clients, again, beyond the perfectionistic lens. I think we could have so many more. And and one of my intentions is to help up level the coaching industry to more integrity, to more deeper transformation. Having my students really embody it, they do. But I have no scarcity about there being too many coaches in the world at all.
I love that. I heard this guy who works with YouTubers and he helps them grow their channels, etc. And he's like one of the best YouTube strategists in the world. And I was listening to a podcast he was on. And the guy was like, but there's so many people with YouTube channels. And the guy's like, is there? Like, I don't even fucking notice because
exactly.
I'm so good at what I do that it doesn't matter what the market is or that there's a recession, right. Because if I spend time thinking about that, I'm already done. Mm-hmm. And I really love what you're saying, because I think when we are in our soul's work and we're in service work, there's so many coaches that thought I had very initially, a little longer than I would have desired, was really because I was afraid to start and I was afraid to stand out. Yeah. And I was afraid that it might work. And and again, asking that part, like, what are you protecting us from? Oh, like being too big, being criticized, getting everything I desire, being in love with my life, being in love with my work, teaching something that matters to me so much that I want to be good at and exceptional at and really hold a bar of integrity. So I love that you said that, because for me, I think that's exactly it. It's like, if you're in that world, which you can start there, it's like what you're saying about there's no scarcity. When you're in the zone,
Yeah. You're
it's
not
like,
looking around.
yeah, exactly. Because it's like after you do personal work and you come with like, I can't meet anybody and I just can't find my person. And then all of a sudden it's raining whatever you desire, even more. Maybe like you're into dudes and all of a sudden chicks are hitting on you and like you're like, what's up is going on?
I love everything you're saying. And I always say that life is the real coach. And so anything that is coming up for me in life, this is life coaching me. This is life apprenticing
Yes.
me. And as I'm true to my own personal development, my own edge of my own journey, as I get support from a coach, I am biased. I love the industry. I love being able to
Same.
accelerate my work by having other people see different perspectives. That's like the thing I invest in most. It's like the goal I never want to end. And so it's like life is apprenticing me to overcome self-doubt, for example. Then if I don't take it personal, then I can not only overcome it quicker, but then I can serve others in doing the same. And what's cool about relationships is that the same dynamics show up in sales as they do in dating. And so as you work with the core stuff inside of you, if you're being rejected or whatever it may be, you get free internally, and then it elevates your romantic relationships, but also your business and creating clients. But there's not from a scarcity mindset. It's not
Right.
like there's not enough. It's about service. And you said souls work. When you're doing the work that feels so aligned and alive, and you can see the value that you're helping create, there's nothing more rewarding. No amount of money could touch that level of abundance within you.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day too that when you continue to not say yes to what is the pathway that is calling to you, you then have to develop addictions to treat the pain of the dissonance of your own self-abandonment. Because it's like you have this potential that's unlived and you know you do. So
Yeah.
like your soul's like, you got to teach this thing. And you're like, who am I to whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I guess I need more sugar, or I guess I
Mm-hmm.
need more TikTok. And you could tell when you're in that cycle because it is the doom scroll, because you're really treating this pain of like, I have more important priorities and I'm putting them off, and to get to know the parts that are resistant and what they're protecting us from, but to also start to be the adult that's steering the car. What you said earlier, I wanted to also touch on, which is that if I heard you correctly, you were essentially saying that the greater the goal or the greater the thing you want to create, the more resistance that you get is actually perfect, because the resistance is coming up so you can process it, alchemize it,
and get free. Yeah.
yeah.
The resistance, your relationship to resistance will be a game changer, because if you lean in with curiosity, you just start to realize that it's protecting something. And then without judging it or resisting resistance, you just breathe into it, you allow it, and you transform it. And I think I think that this work is so valuable. And I used to say, how do people do it without having the tools? And then I'm like, oh, there's addiction. There's all these ways that we try to medicate and take care and soothe ourselves. It's not a substance or shopping or porn that's the problem. It's showing us something deeper inside. And as
Yes.
we have those tools, compassionately seeing, because if there's somebody that's like, I'm self-harming, I'm self-abandoning, I know it, because usually you start to have a mental awareness. But where people get stuck is they judge themselves for the pattern, and then they say, I'm an addict, and they identify with it. And to really, my invitation is to have a compassionate lens, to be like, wow, this is the best way that I've known how to soothe myself, to take care of myself. And I'm learning differently now. So yes, you can be in alignment with what is, but you don't need to further be caught in that paradigm of recreating the suffering by judging yourself or identifying with it. So it's just like, be compassionate. As you become self-aware, the more compassionate, the easier it is to move to the next stage. Because the first stage of awareness is like ignorance, like people just don't even know. The second stage of awareness is people starting to do the personal development work and being like, shit, all I have is problems. Like, it was actually better before I started doing this work.
Can
That's
I
stage two. Yeah. Let me go back to ignorance is bliss. But if you keep going, you realize there's space between you and those patterns. It's not who you are, and they're not a problem. And then in that space, like the Viktor Frankl quote, it's like, you can choose differently. And so if people are in stage two, just like keep going. I promise it gets easier, and have the right supports and the right tools to navigate your inner world, because life is a mirror. So as your inner world, so your outer world. And it's the number one thing that I'm so grateful for in this life are the tools. And I want more people to have them.
I have another potential throw under the bus question.
Great, let's do it.
Which I'm like, I've been committed in 2025 to ask harder questions.
Good. Okay.
And this one I think is also my own question because I'm in this space. I hear a lot of people say, in light of me leaving Instagram and then coming back, I hear a lot of friends of mine, when I left Instagram, actually one of my really good friends who she messaged me and she said, I feel like we're in Shawshank and you just got released early when I left. And I have that constant awareness that people feel this heaviness in relationship as coaches or therapists or both, that there is a desire. And I put in that coaching space too, like executive coaching, teams, everything, somatic therapists, all of it.
Yeah.
So they're like, I don't want to use social media. Like I have one friend who signed up for your certification and he was like, I don't want to do Instagram, Mark. I hate it. And I was like, I get it. So
me too.
Do people have to use social media to get clients? And if not, how the hell? Because that's the way I've done it. I've used like Substack or LinkedIn or, like these expressive platforms, podcasting.
Yeah.
But I kind of threw it all at the wall. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I actually love this question because I didn't start my business online. So I went the route of getting licensed as a therapist, and then nobody taught me how to create clients. And any of my master's degrees didn't actually think about me being an entrepreneur. And so I've developed my own framework around you don't need to use social media to do multiple six figures as a coach. I made $300,000 of profit the first year as a coach, and I worked 30 hours a month.
Can we scratch a record? Holy shit.
And I was doing high ticket coaching, working with only a few clients, and I was doing my own personal development work so that my consciousness was clear to serve at that level. And what that looked like was, I don't remember if it was like 30 clients that year max, or maybe there was a few years that I did one-on-one clients and then I did a mastermind and one-on-one clients. But all I was doing, half of my time on a business level, was doing what I call clarity sessions, which are a way to share your services. It's a generosity-based way to grow your business. You do a session that gives people an experience of your work, and it's a sales conversation to see if you want to work with them. Because when you're working with somebody deeply, you want to also vet, can I serve this person? Is this somebody I'd want to take on? And then they're also vetting you, and you have an experience before doing a container. And you're using your gifts as a clinician or a coach to be able to sell. So service and sales is the same. And so I've now coached hundreds of therapists, coaches, and healers to do multiple six figures, working part-time. And they have their full, beautiful life with their kids, because not, full-time as a coach is kind of part-time because you want to have your own life. You don't want to just be supporting other people. And so I've developed, here's the thing. Social media is great. I'm on it now. There are challenges with it. It's more entrepreneurial. If I had started online, I don't think I would have made it, because you need to have a team and tech and the trends, and it's more entrepreneurship. It's a lot, you guys. And I tell people before they get online, you don't have to do this. And because there wasn't a map for me when I originally did it, I created a map. It took me hours to simplify a map to share with people. Whether you're new or experienced, here's what I would recommend you start with, depending on how much you want to work, what lights you up, and how much money you want to make. Then we reverse engineer it, because I don't believe in a one size fits all business model. So my newer coaches, I'm like, there are so many ways that you can create clients today for free. And I recommend you get to six figures, and I'll tell you a roadmap of how to do that. And then if you want to go online, you can. But also if you go online from that point, you'll know because you don't need a niche until you're marketing online, because you have the benefit of hearing from somebody, and the best marketing is really listening to somebody. So you can hear from them and then tailor what you're going to say to serve them specifically. But if you're online, you don't have that benefit. So you want to niche down, me with coaches, you in relationships. And so when you go online, you have that, but then you're going to know what converts without spending a lot of time and money on figuring out what converts. And you're going to know that your offer and your program actually does serve people because you've beta tested it, you have testimonials, and then you scale from there. So there's a whole system that I teach. When you go online, it takes 10 times more work. And I just am telling people honestly so that they can consciously make that choice. And you can make 7 figures plus. It takes work though.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, people sell you on, you just have recurring income. That's not accurate. You're always tweaking your funnels. You're always doing
Oh my God,
things.
it's a never ending.
It's never ending. You put a lot of work in the front and then you keep tweaking and then, trends change. And so truly, like, the skills of an entrepreneur are part of what I also teach. Resourcefulness is really important, to know that you can create income for yourself no matter a pandemic and whatever the economy is doing. When you have that inside of you, and then you've got the business skills to do it in a way that feels in integrity and alignment with your heart, that you're making a difference, whether they sign up or not, and you love what you're doing as a way to grow your business, sharing your gifts, it's a game changer. And so a lot of people find me because they're like, I didn't even know that was a possibility, because everyone online is telling you, do a podcast, have social media, and then you just burn out and you don't need to do any of that.
Yeah, if I was to start all over again and I heard what you're saying, it's not even a question. Because in my leaving Instagram, I discovered all of the nervous system issues that happen unconsciously with social media platforms that we don't even know are going on till it shows up as burnout and anxiety and depression. And now I have an informed way of coming back. So I've built in the strategies, because I really do enjoy the level of reach and the level of conversation that I get to have. Not everybody wants that. Like my buddy who I was talking about before, who was like, I want nothing. He's an introvert. He's an incredible people person, but he literally wants nothing. He doesn't even have Instagram. So the idea of saying to him, you're going to have to start an Instagram account where you're going to say, I'm a coach who does this. He's like, it actually gives him so much anxiety, which I said to him, you have to trust that. Like, just because that worked for me, that doesn't work for everybody. And the constant needing to create, as you said, and this goes so much to like Ben Hardy's book, 10X is easier than 2X with Dan Sullivan, where he said, like, not only does the experience of the client and you go up when you go at higher goals and bigger checks and bigger, more niche like markets too, the work is less.
Yes.
And people, that seems paradoxical to people.
And you're doing work that you are uniquely good at, that brings you aliveness, and you're focusing on that 20% rather than the other 80%. And so, yes. And some people, and the way that I have, it's my 6-figure and beyond signature roadmap for business. So some people are creators like you. You guys love creating. There's a way to capitalize on your gifts. Some people are introverts. I teach how to do business for introverts or extroverts, online or offline. That. It's like, it's designed in such different ways so it meets you where you are, because when you're doing what brings you aliveness, people are magnetized. I talk about creating clients by attracting them and creating them. So feminine and masculine. When you're in your aliveness, people are like, I want what they're having. And that's the same with relationships. They're attracted. There's the magnetism. When you're doing that, and that's the 20%, and you're really good at it, you feel an embodied level of confidence, and you can create a wait list of dream clients. It is a lot easier when you're focused on your gifts and having permission and a roadmap to do it in a way that fulfills you. That's creating a long, sustainable business.
I love it because it's also rebellious in some sense, like the part of me that's like, fuck the system, fuck it all, This is amazing. I hope for you listening or watching that if you've been seeking this space or you're in this space, that at least I ask those 2 questions, because to me, those are like the 2 things that I hear as sort of the greatest objections to pursuing or deepening our work in those spaces. For people listening, when does it start? Like, do you have one coming up? And how long is it? And whatever other details people might need.
Yeah. So I have, we're an ICF accredited coach certification program, and the program is designed with the 3 things that you need to thrive in this profession. Whether you're a coach, therapist, a healer, you're just really committed to your personal development work. The two things that people walk away with, I'm always interested in confidence and clients. I know that my clients walk away with that. They want that. But there are ways to support you in doing this work. So the three things to thrive, you always got to do your own work. You got to embody it. You can't outsource that. And you don't want to, because your life gets better. You feel more elevated and confident, and you share from that abundance. So you doing your own work. The second thing is having an integrative methodology that helps you be trauma informed and know how to coach people or work with people in various types of ways. Again, somatic work is a big part of it, but it's not the only work. You need emotional mastery, mindset work, subconscious reprogramming, all of that. And then thirdly, to start or scale a business. So I have brand new, never done this work before, and I have seasoned therapists, entrepreneurs, and they do very well. Like, I think after 6 months, I think 70% of our clients make their investment back, and some people are doing $80,000 months. Others are brand new. So it just depends on where they've started, but it's insane the way that once people find a system that works for them and they feel so confident about it, they can't help but share the work. And we support them in creating clients while in the program. And we use business as a personal development path. So it's not like that. I just know business. It's like, no, how do you embody this? What's true for you? Because there's a fear of being seen, AKA fear of being rejected. And so we work through that as you start to invite people into a session with you or share a workshop online. So we do the inner and outer throughout the whole program.
That's so interesting. So you also do a business as a path for personal development.
Yeah.
That's going to F some of you up. That's for sure. That's F me up. It's like so powerful.
It's like, and that's what I didn't get when I was getting trained. I'm like, how could you miss that? And I think people think money and business are separate, but it's all a part of it. And if you don't figure that out, you won't feel your full power. And to really create sustainable change, you want to embody it. And then that's why I serve coaches, therapists, and healers to really have that ripple effect in the world. And so the program starts in February this year, so next month.
Yeah.
And it's almost a year, and that we do deep work and we change it up throughout. And I know you're going to be guest speaking and teaching in the program. I want to invite you to do that and share your gifts on relationships.
Get ready, everybody.
Let's go.
We're going to go deep.
Yeah. Which is really, this program, this is not about people learning macros. This is not service level work. This is if you want to create real sustainable change in your life and apply it towards relationship, business, health, any type of coaching or therapy, healing, personal development work, this is the program, because it really helps you embody it from the inside out. And so I'm going to do a 5-day boot camp, January 27th to the 31st. And it's 5 days. It's free. It's called Confidence in Clients. This is really for people to get a taste of the power and the magic, where we do shadow work and we elevate. It's both we balance both of it, but they're tools that, whether you're brand new or you're seasoned, tools that you can use on yourself or with your clients so that you can feel the power of it and decide for yourself. And it's literally our most popular event of the year. People create powerful changes in these 5 days. So I'm super excited to share it with people.
Awesome. Well, where do people find that then?
Yeah, they can sign up on your link underneath in the show notes.
Sweet. All right. There's a link in the show notes that I didn't know about that you're going to click on. And I'll be teaching. I didn't know I was starting right in February, but I will be teaching.
No, you're starting. You're starting. We're going to figure out the date, but you're in our 2025 cohort this year.
Oh, hell yeah, everybody. Yeah. Good news. It's raining. It's raining. Beautiful news. Okay. So for all of you listening, thank you for joining us. Thank you for teaching. This is amazing. Thanks for bringing in the more holistic view to this. And I'm excited. Oh, the last question I was going to ask, if someone has no experience coaching at all, is the program for them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's literally designed for people that are brand new, even if they just want personal development work, they want to share it with their partner. I'm all about generosity-based business. So give people value, really help them change their life, and then they taste the magic of it. And that's like the appetizer, right? And if they're excited about going deeper, then they'll know exactly what they're getting. Just real quick, sometimes the coaches or therapists will be like, how come people are upset later in my packages, or they want to refund? And I talk all about all of the different things. And if you're not really clear upfront about what the expectations are, that's what doesn't create a really solid relationship. So literally, even in our program, we have a 30% re-enrollment rate because people love the program so much, they keep going deeper into it. So when you're clear and upfront about what coaching is, what it's not, how you're here to serve them, you set up the context and the safety and the expectations. So they're not unspoken expectations. They're really clear agreements up front for people to thrive within that container. And then you can't help but have people want to deepen with you because they're getting so much value. And so we give 10 times what we charge for our services. And then it feels good for us. We get referrals. We're so proud of the work we do in the world. And that's what people are really seeking. They want to feel good about the work that they're doing in the world, and they want to live it themselves first. So show up for the 5 days. It's free. Take advantage of it. And then, you'll see.
And also for the credential people, ICF certified is great. That's International Coaching Federation certified. And very rarely are coaching certifications actually certified by ICF. So that's phenomenal. And, I can't wait to teach you on relationship in there if you decide to join. It's going to be lots of fun. Thank you so much. Sending you so much love. Really appreciate you taking the time. And I'll see you on those 5 days too. I can't wait.
So good. Love you.